Good day and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu. This is group 6 and in this video we are going to discuss the chapter 8, the implementing strategies and different issues such as marketing, finance or accounting, R&D and at the same time MIS issues. So without further ado, let's start the discussion. So before proceeding to the main topic of the chapter, let me enlighten you first about the chapter objectives. So at the end of this chapter or discussion, you can be able to explain the market segmentation and product positioning as a strategy implementation tools. The second is you can be able to discuss procedures for determining the worth of a business. The third one is explain why projected financial statement analysis is a central strategy implementation tool. The fourth one is explain how to evaluate the attractiveness of debt versus stock as a source of capital to implement strategies. And the fifth one is discuss the nature and role of research and development in strategy implementation. And the last one is you can be able to explain how management information systems can determine the success of strategy implementation efforts. Okay, so let's now discuss the nature of strategy implementation. Strategy implementation simply talks about how the formulated strategy will implement and can implement in an entity. That is why it has been said that strategy implementation directly affects the lives of different managers, such as plant managers, division managers, department managers, and etc. In some situations also, individuals may not have participated in a strategy formulation process at all and may not appreciate, understand, or even accept the work and thought that went into strategy formulation. Okay, so sa pag-formulate pa lang ng strategy na i-implement sa in an entity, kailangan it is according to the rights and according sa rights ng employees and manager in order for them to participate and concentrate and understand the strategy that will be that will be implemented in an entity. As I have said, that the strategy or the formulation and implementation of the strategy must be accordingly kasi countless marketing variables affect the success or failure of strategy implementation. At the same time, yung mga scope ng text does not allow us to address all those issues. And some example of the marketing decisions that may require policies are as follows. Yung number one is yung to use exclusive dealership or multiple channels of distribution. Tapos yung pangalawa is yung to use the heavy, light, or no TV advertising. Number three is to limit or not the share of business done with a single customer. The fourth one is to be a price leader or a price follower. The fifth one is to offer a complete or limited warranty. The sixth one is yung to reward salespeople based on straight salary. So this is yung incentives ng mga mga employees natin. Straight commission or combination salary commissions. And the last one is to advertise online or not. So these are just some of the current marketing issues. So meron din tayong tinatawag na yung concerns ng mga customers. Kasi yan yung pinakamalaki na pinaka-concern ngayon ng market, yung marketing issues of increasing concern of customers today. So that is why yung company kailangan nila mag-extend ng actions in order to identify yung mga marketing issues regarding dun sa concerns ng mga regarding dun sa mga issues na galing sa kanilang mga customers. So as we all know that internet nowadays is very common. So by using the internet, ma-identify na natin yung mga customers natin, yung mga concern nila by soliciting information. That is why then also, yung mga customers ng every company or every entity, kailangan nilang i-involve yung mga employees at the same time yung mga customers nila dun sa kailang company in order to track that concerns na mabigyan nila or maput nila into considerations at magawa ng implementation. And that is why yung mga company is gina-encourage talaga nila yung mga company or mga organization na mag-create ng wikis. Ang wikis ay ito yung sinatawag na ito yung mga websites that allows user to add, delete, and edit content regarding the frequently asked questions. So by using the wikis kasi, you can be able to identify the concern and yung concern ng mga customers doon sa ating product or the company, the service of the company, para put into consideration as I have said and magawa nito ng for strategy and ma-formulate at saka ma-implement. Okay, so the most common wiki is Wikipedia. So it is known, Wikipedia. Okay, so we have these new principles of marketing, which is today a business organization's websites must provide clear and simple instructions for the customer to set up a blog or contribute to a wiki. So, ang big sabihin lang nito is, like for example, yung Shopee, di ba? Shopee and Lazada. So, yung mga companies or yung mga seller doon is nagpo-provide sila ng information about the product and or service na binibenta nila. So, kailangan yung mga customers is magkaroon ng mag-provide ng good reviews about sa product. Nang sa ganun is maka-gain sila ng sales mas lalo or mag-increase yung sales nila. Yun ang tinatawag na mag-provide di ba, yung mga websites na ginagawa nila is naghihingi sila ng reviews about doon as simple as para mas magkaroon ng sales or ma-attract yung mga ibang consumers na mag-consume sa product. Although the exponential increase in social networking and business online has created huge opportunities for marketers kasi ngayon nagbibigay sila ng reviews at nakaka-earn sila ng more sales, it also has produced some severe threats. Like for example, perhaps the greatest threat is that any king of negative reviews or reactions doon sa company or doon sa product can bring a large threat sa company. Or like for example, kapag nag-comment ka doon ng hindi maganda yung product, like hindi putol or bad yung service nila, so talagang magkakaroon ng malaking impact doon sa seller or doon sa product na walang bibili doon. So that is why there are some increasing numbers of people living in underdeveloped and poor nations around the world that cell phones but no computer, so the internet is rapidly moving to cell phone platforms. So meron tayong tinatawag na new principles of marketing dito na don't just talk to consumers at work with them throughout the marketing process. Meron pangalawa din na give consumers a reason to participate. Like diba, sabi ko dun sa una na yung mga current issues na kailangan ma-involve natin yung consumers sa ating company in order to solicit information para magbigay sila ng reaction. Tapos, listen to and join the conversation outside your company's website. So, some point, makinggan mo din yung mga concern dun sa baba at mag-reply ka nang sa ganun is mag-provide ka at maka-provide ka ng mas lalong magandang service or product. Resist the temptation to sell. Instead, attract. Hindi lang basta benta lang. Kailangan ma-attract mo din sila yung mga consumers mo na bumili sa'yo. Kasi the way na yung attractions nila dun sa product is mas lalong silang bibili as mas lalong bibili yung hindi benta lang na hindi mo na sila ina-attract dun sa company or hindi mo na pinapakinggan yung side nila. Don't control online conversations. Let it flow freely. Okay, so it's very sabotable naman yan siya. So number 6 is find a marketing technologist, a person who has 3 excellent skill sets: marketing, technology, and social interaction. So ngayon, nowadays, kailangan mag-hire tayo or mag-hire yung company ng marketing technologist. A marketing technologist is yung alam niya yung tatlong excellent skills, yung paano yung mag-marketing, paano yung the technology, dapat aware siya sa technology, and the third one is alam niya yung paano interacts into social. Okay. So the last one is embrace instant messaging and chatting. So kailangan, kasi at some point na yung pagme-message ng mga company is, pagme-message ng consumer sa company, kapag hindi yan sila na-replyan is nagkakaroon din ng bad impact doon sa company. So now, let's proceed to advertising media. So recent research by Forrester Research reveals that people ages ages 18 to 27 spend more time weekly on the internet than watching television, listening to radio, or watching DVDs or VH tapes. Wala tayong VH tapes dito ngayon. So, di ba ngayon mas alam naman natin na mas dumami yung cellphones kaysa panonood ng TV kasi at some point pag bumisita ka sa mga iba't ibang bahay, you can be able to see that most of the child or adult in that one is nakatingin lang sa phone niya at hindi mahilig manood ng TV. Okay, so advertising media nowadays should consider also that one. Kasi hindi lang pag-advertise sa TV, television yung atupagin natin, kundi magkaroon tayo ng social networking sites na kung saan magpapakita din sila ng mga advertisement. Kasi it has been said that social networking sites and video sites are better means of reaching their customers than spending so many marketing dollars on traditional yellow pages or television, magazine, radio, or newspaper ads. Kasi nga, at some point, marami na din yung vlogger. Di ba? Yung mga vlogger na sa Pilipinas, masyadong dumami. So, by using that platform na mag-advertise tayo into social networking sites, na magkakaroon tayo ng ma-reach natin or ma-reach out natin lalo yung mga consumers natin. Like for example, doon sa pag nanonood ng YouTube or vlog yung isang tao, is mayroong advertise na maglabas doon, di ba? So, makikita nila yung product na binebenta mo. Not just by showing or mag-advertise ka lang dun sa mga televisions na walang nanonood, kundi mga matatanda lang na yung manonood lang ng balita kapag doon. Okay, so, yung halimbawa din yung Cardo, may hindi nanonood sa TV, may pina-search lang nila sa YouTube yon, tapos mapapanood din lang. So, you can be able to reach them by using the social networking sites. Okay, so yung mga magagawa ka ng ads sa mga YouTube, ganyan, so you can be able to reach them. So now let's discuss the purpose-based marketing. So the global marketing chief of Procter & Gamble, Jim Stengel, recently started his own LLC business to try to persuade companies that the best way to sell in a weak economy is to show customers how they can improve their lives with your product or service. So si Stengel, tinawag niya itong purpose-based marketing, which is 100 firms have now adopted this approach successfully. So this purpose-based marketing na propose ni STEM Stengel is that it only means that kailangan yung product mo or yung service mo must be connected or must have a purpose para dun sa mga bumibili or sa customer mo. So he says that there is a need in an ad to build trust and an emotional connection to the customer in order to differentiate your product or service. So kailangan din na yung ad no or yung advertise mo mag-build siya ng trust at saka emotional connection doon sa ating customer para nang sa ganun is maging iba yung product or service mo. So kailangan, like for example, kapag yung company mo or yung service mo or product mo is kailangan makita yun ang purpose ng isang customer or sa consumer na bilhin ko yan kasi makakatulong yan sa akin or okay, so yan, kailangan ipakita talaga ng isang seller or ng company na yung product or service mo must have benefit para sa kanilang buhay.
Assalamu alaikum and good day. I am Siti Aina A. Unte. At this point of our video lecture, you are going to learn market segmentation and product positioning. Market segmentation is widely used in implementing strategies, especially for small and specialized firms. Market segmentation can be defined as the subdividing of a market into distinct subsets of customers according to needs and buying habits. Market segmentation seeks to identify targeted groups of customers to tailor products and branding in a way that is attractive to the group. Simply stated, it is the process of dividing a large unit into various small units which have more or less similar or related characteristics. Market segmentation is important in strategy implementation for three reasons. First, strategies such as market development, product development, market penetration, and diversification require increased sales through new markets and products. To implement these strategies successfully, new or improved market segmentation approaches are required. Second, market segmentation allows a firm to operate with limited resources because mass production, mass distribution, and mass advertising are not required. Market segmentation enables a small firm to compete successfully with a large firm by maximizing per unit profits and per segment sales. Finally, market segmentation decisions directly affect marketing mix variables, which we will be discussing in the next slide. The marketing mix consists of product, price, promotion, and place. When we talk about product, we mean things like the quality of the product, the design, the packaging it's selling, and the brand. Price. Price does not only refer to the retail price but also any discount. Do they accept payment plans? Are there any specific credit terms if the customer will buy the product in installment basis or any other method of payment? Promotion. Promotion deals with any advertising, personal selling, public relations, emails, and anything that gets the word to the public. Lastly, place. Does the company stand in a retail location? Do they deliver products? Or what are the mode of distribution? For example, Victoria's Secret and their teenage targeting brand Pink. Victoria's Secret primarily targets women, while their brand Pink is targeted more toward teenage girls and women. Market segmentation has four elements, namely geographic, demographic, psychographic, and behavioral. For us to understand this further, let us take Coca-Cola as an example. The company's geographic segmentation aims to drive the market into different geographical units, including cities, regions, and neighborhoods. While Coca-Cola might be focusing on urban and suburban areas, it also ensures a countrywide product distribution network. This is in the realization that as the company expands, there is a demand from those in rural areas. Meanwhile, the demographic segmentation of Coca-Cola is divided into subsegments based on various variables like age, occupation, family life cycle, race, religion, generation, social class, and nationality. These variables are the most popular bases of Coca-Cola to distinguish customers group. The psychographic element of the Coca-Cola market segmentation is categorized into different groups based on lifestyle, personality, or values. The behavioral variable is the final element in Coca-Cola's marketing segmentation. It generally focuses on the customer's knowledge of, use of, response, and attitude towards its products. Most marketers treat the behavioral variables as excellent starting points for formulating market segments. So now we have a question. Does the internet make market segmentation easier? Generally, the answer is yes. The segments of people who marketers want to reach online are much more precisely defined than the segments of people reach through traditional forms of media such as television, radio, and magazines. For example, Quepasa.com is widely visited by Hispanics, marketers aiming to reach college students who are notoriously difficult to reach via traditional media focus on sites such as collegeclub.com and studentadvantage.com. Now let's discuss product positioning. After markets have been segmented so that the firm can target particular customer groups, the next step is to find out what customers want and expect. This takes analysis and research. This process is generally what the product positioning does. Product positioning refers to the ability to influence consumer perception regarding a brand or product relative to competitors. The objective of product positioning is to establish the image or identity of a brand or product so that consumers perceive it in a certain way. For example, a handbag maker may position itself as a luxury status symbol. A TV maker may position its TV as the most innovative and cutting edge. Another, a fast food restaurant chain, may position itself as the provider of cheap meals. Positioning entails developing schematic representations that reflect how your products or services compare to competitors on dimensions most important to success in the industry. The following steps are required in product positioning. First, select key criteria that effectively differentiate products or services in the industry. Second, diagram a two-dimensional product positioning map with specified criteria on each axis. Third, plot major competitors' products or services in the resultant four-quadrant matrix. Fourth, identify areas in the positioning map where the company's products or services could be most competitive in the given target market. Look for vacant areas. And lastly, develop a marketing plan to position the company's products or services appropriately. Because just two criteria can be examined on a single product positioning map, multiple maps are often developed to assess various approaches to strategy implementation. That's why we have multidimensional scaling. It could be used to examine three or more criteria simultaneously, but this technique requires computer assistance. And this is beyond the scope of this text, so we are not going to get deeper on this topic. An effective product positioning strategy meets two criteria. First, it uniquely distinguishes a customer from the competition. And second, it leads customers to expect slightly less service than a company can deliver. Firms should not create expectations that exceed the service the firm can or will deliver. Network equipment technology is an example of a company that keeps customer expectations slightly below perceived performance. This is a constant challenge for marketers. Firms need to inform customers about what to expect and then exceed the promise. Under promise and then over deliver is the key. Here we have an example of product positioning. The factors used to classify the shoe products is whether it is expensive or cheap, or it is whether it is used for fashion or for performance. So we have here, for example, Skechers. Skechers is more likely expensive and used for fashion. Fila, on the other hand, is cheap and it is used for performance. We have Nike. Nike is expensive and it is used for performance, same as the Puma and Reebok. Um, on the other hand, we have Converse. Converse is cheap, but it is more used for fashion. So you see, it is very simple and easy to understand.
So I am Raja Mujahid. So let's continue our discussion on finance or accounting issues. In this section, we examine several finance or accounting concepts considered to be central to strategy implementation, acquiring needed capital, developing projected financial statements, preparing financial budgets, and evaluating the worth of a business. Some examples of decisions that may require finance or accounting policies are these seven, and these are number one, to raise capital with short-term debt, long-term debt, preferred stock, or common stock. Number two is to lease or buy fixed assets. Number three is to determine an appropriate dividend payout ratio. Number four, to use LIFO or last in first out, FIFO, first in first out, or a market value accounting approach. Number five is to extend the time of accounts receivable. And lastly, to determine the amount of cash that should be kept on hand. So in acquiring capital to implement strategies, successful strategy implementation often requires additional capital. Besides net profit from operations, an appropriate mix of debt and equity in a firm's capital structure can be vital to successfully strategy implementation. And earnings per share or earnings before interest and taxes, or as we know, EBIT analysis is the which EBIT analysis is the most widely used technique for determining whether debt, stock, or a combination of debt and stock is the best alternative for raising capital to implement strategies. These techniques involves an examination of the impact that debt versus stock financing has on earnings per share under various assumptions as to EBIT. Theoretically, an enterprise should have enough debt in its capital structure to boost its return on investment by applying debt to products and projects, uh, earning more than the cost of the debt. In low earnings period, too much debt in the capital structure of an organization can endanger stockholders' returns and jeopardize company survival. And fixed debt obligation generally must be met regardless of circumstances. So this does not mean that the stock issuance are always better than debt for raising capital. Some special concern with stock issuance are dilution of ownership, effects on stock price, and the need to share future earnings with all new shareholders. In this slide, without going into detail on other institutional and legal issues related to the debt versus stock decision, EPS or EBIT may be best explained by working through an example. So as you can see, as you can see from this slide, let's say the Brown company needs to raise $1 million to finance implementation of a market development strategy. The company's common stock currently sells for $50 per share, and 100,000 shares are outstanding. The prime interest rate is 10%, and the company's tax rate is 50%. The company's earnings before interest and taxes, or the EBIT, next year are expected to be 2 million if a recession occurs, and $4 million if the company stays as is, and $8 million if the economy significantly improves. So EPS or the EBIT analysis can be used to determine if all stock, all debt, or some combination of stock and debt is the best capital financing alternative. The EPS or EBIT analysis for this example is provided in this slide, uh, or the table 8-5. So as indicated by EPS, values of 9.5, 19.5, and 39.5 in table 8-5, that is the best financing alternative for the Brown company if a recession, boom, or normal year is expected. An EPS or EBIT chart can be constructed to determine the break-even point, as you can see from the bottom right of this slide. So where one financing alternative becomes more attractive than another. So that is the 8 table 8-3. So in table or figure 8-3, it indicates that issuing common stock is the least attractive financing alternative for the Brown company. In EPS or EBIT analysis is a valuable tool for making the capital financing decision needed to implement strategies, but several considerations should be made whenever using this technique. First, profit levels may be higher for stock or debt alternatives when earnings per share levels are lower. For example, looking only at the earnings after taxes values in table 8-5, you can see that the common stock option is the best alternative, regardless of economic conditions. If the Brown Company's mission includes strict profit maximization as opposed to be maximization of stockholders' wealth or some other criterion, then stock rather than debt is the best choice of financing. Another consideration when using EPS or EBIT analysis is flexibility. As an organization's capital structure changes, so does its flexibility for considering future capital needs. Using all debt or all stock to raise capital in the present may impose fixed obligations, restrictive covenants, or other constraints that could severely reduce a firm's ability to raise additional capital in the future. So control is also a concern when additional stock is issued to finance strategy implementation. Ownership and control of the enterprise are diluted. This can be serious concern in today's business environment of hostile takeovers, mergers, and acquisitions. So when using a EPS or EBIT analysis in relation to movements of stock prices, interest rates, and bond prices becomes important. In times of depressed stock price, debt may prove to be the most suitable alternative from both a cost and demand standpoint. However, when cost of capital or the interest rates is high, stock issuance becomes more attractive. So let's go to the next slide. So in table, as you can see in table 8-6 and 8-7 provides EPS or EBIT analysis for two companies, Gateway and Boeing. As you can see, note in those analyses that the combination stock or debt options vary from 30/70 to 70/30. Any number of combination could be explored. However, sometimes in preparing the EPS or EBIT graphs, the lines will intersect, thus revealing break-even points at which one financing alternative becomes more or less attractive than other. Uh, the slope of these lines will be determined by a combination of factors, including stock price, interest rates, number of shares, and amount of a capital needed. Also, it should be noted here that the best financing alternatives are indicated by the highest EPS values. So as you can see in table 8-6 and 8-7, notes that the tax rates for the companies vary considerably and should be computed from the respective income statements by dividing taxes paid by the income before taxes. So in table 8-6, the higher EPS values indicates that the gateway should use stock to raise capital in recession or normal economic conditions, but it should be used debt financing under boom conditions. Stock is the best alternatives for gateway under all three conditions. If the EAT or the profit maximization were the decision criteria, uh, but the EPS or the maximize shareholders wealth is better ratio to make these decisions. Firms can do many things in the short run to maximize profits. So investors and creditors should consider maximizing shareholders wealth to be the better criteria for making financing decisions. Also, in table 8-7, note that the Boeing should use stock to raise capital in recession. So as you can see a 0.92 or the normal 2.29 economic um, conditions, but should use debt financing under boom conditions. Uh, let's calculate here the number of shares figure of 1014.67 given under Boeing stocks alternative. Divide them to the $10,000 funds needed by the stock price of $53 equals to 188.68 millions new shares to be issued, plus the 826 million shares outstanding already. Outstanding already is equals to 1014.68 million shares under the stock scenario. Along the final row, EPS is the number of shares outstanding divided by EAT in all columns. Also take note that in table 8-6 and 8-7 that the dividends row is absent from both the Gateway and Boeing analysis. The more shares outstanding, the more dividends to be paid. Paying dividends lowers the EAT, which lowers the stock's earnings per share values whenever these aspects is included. To consider dividends in the EPS or the EBIT analysis, simply insert another row for dividends right below the EAT row, and then insert an earnings after taxes and dividends row. Considering dividends would make the analysis more robust. And also take note that in both the Gateway and the Boeing graphs, there is a break-even point between the normal and boom range of EBIT, where the debt option overtakes the 70% debt over 30% stock option as the best financing alternatives. A break-even point is where two lines cross each other. A break-even point is the EBIT level where various financing alternatives represented by lines crossing are equally attractive in the terms of EPS. Both the Gateway and the Boeing graphs indicates that the EPS values are higher for the 100% debt option at the high EBIT levels. The two graphs also reveals that the EPS values for 100% debt increase faster than the other financing options as EBIT reveals increase beyond the break-even point. At the low levels of EBIT, however, both the Gateway and the Boeing graphs indicate that the 100% stock is the best financing alternatives because the EPS are highest.
Assalamualaikum and good day. I am Nurjana Sultan and I am here to continue the discussion under the chapter 8. So we have here the new source of funding. So as given in the book, we have a credit unions. Credit unions are chartered as non-profit cooperative institutions owned by their members. So it is a type of financial institutions na katulad ng commercial bank, which also it offers such as credit cards, checking and savings accounts, and loans. But it is a non-profit financial institutions that's owned by the people who use its financial products. So, ang pinagkaibahan lang ng credit unions and banks, so the main difference is that the credit unions are non-profit and also a member-only financial institutions, whereas banks are for-profit institutions, meaning they are either privately owned or publicly traded or open to anyone. So, and also credit unions is a tax-exempt organizations. So many credit unions want to give more businesses loans, but bankers argue that allowing credit unions to give more business loans would give them an unfair competitive advantage over traditional banks. So, hindi sang-ayon yung bankers sa pagbabago na ito. Next, we have projected financial statements. Projected financial statement analysis is one of a central strategy implementation technique that allows an organization to examine the expected results of various actions and approaches. So this type of analysis can be used to forecast the impact of various implementation decisions. So for example is to increase the sales to 50%, to increase the salaries, to increase the expenditure, to increase the capital, and many more. So all financial institutions require at least 3 years of projected financial statements whenever a business seeks capital. So projected income statement and balance sheet allow an organization to compute projected financial ratios under various strategy implementation scenarios. So dahil sa mga resulta ng pag-collapse ng iba't ibang business tulad ng Enron collapse and accounting scandal and the ensuing Sarbanes-Oxley Act, companies today are being much more diligent in preparing projected financial statements to reasonably rather than to optimistically project future expenses and earnings. So we have here an example of 2011 projected income statement and the balance sheet for a Latin company based on these 5 assumptions. So first assumption, the company needs to raise $45 million to finance expansion into foreign markets. Next, $30 million of this total will be raised through increased debt and $15 million through common stock. Number 3, sales are expected to increase 50%. Number 4, 3 new facilities costing a total of $30 million will be constructed into foreign markets. And lastly, land for the new facilities is already owned by the company. So before the example of performing projected financial statement, we have these 6 steps sa pag-perform ng projected financial analysis. First, prepare the projected income statement before the balance sheet. So, mauna daw yung income statement. Next, use the percentage of sales method to project cost of goods sold and the expense items in the income statement. Third, calculate the projected net income. Fourth, subtract from the net income any dividends to be paid for that year. Fifth, project the balance sheet items, beginning with the retained earnings and then forecasting stockholders' equity, long-term liabilities, current liabilities, total assets, fixed assets, and current assets. So, dapat in order. Lastly, list comments or remarks on the projected statements. So, that's how you prepare the projected financial analysis. So, here is the example in performing projected income statement and balance sheet for the latent company. So, ang mga numbers is in a million. So, based in our steps, ang unahin natin is yung projected income statement bago yung balance sheet. So, kung makikita natin is walang balance sheet sa baba kasi putol, hindi kasya sa ating slide. So, makikita natin in the next slide yung balance sheet statement is yung balance sheet. So, we have projected income statement. So, sa pag-prepare ng projected income statement, is mauuna yung sales, ibabawas natin yung cost of goods sold. So, meron tayong gross margin. Ibabawas na naman yung expenses. We have interest, earnings before interest and taxes. Then, ibawas na naman yung interest. So, we have earnings before taxes. Then, ibawas na naman yung taxes. So, makukuha natin yung net income natin. Then, ibawas na naman yung dividends. So, meron na tayong retained earnings. So, kung mapapansin natin is, nandito yung projected year natin in 2011. In our prior year, 2010. So, based on our 5 assumptions, so makita natin sa sales natin is from 100 million is naging 150 million sa ating projected year in 2011. Na based on our assumption, we have 50% increase in our sales. And also, cost of goods sold, we have 70% of sales. The expenses, 10% of sales. The administrative expense, we have 5% of sales. And also, the taxes, in our remarks, we have 50% of rate. So, ito yung pag-perform ng projected year in 2011 for our income statement. So, here's the continuation on performing projected financial statements. So, based on our steps is mahuhuli nga yung projected balance sheet. So, we have this total assets. In our prior year, in 2010, we have 82 million. And in our projected in 2011, we have a total assets of 131 million 0.75. So, makikita rin natin yung mga remarks natin na kinakailangan sa pag-perform ng projected financial statements. We have plus figure in our cash, and also we have increase of 100% in our accounts receivable, and also in the plant and equipment, add 3 new plants at $10 million each. Here's the continuation in our projected balance sheet. So, we have a total liabilities and net worth. So, kung mapapansin natin is same lang sila sa total asset natin. Now, we have 82 million in our prior year 2010 and 131.75 million in our projected 2011. So, meron rin tayong remarks na kinakailangan sa pag-perform ng projected financial statements. So, note that latent strategies under implementation are expected to result in a sales increase from $100 million to $150 million and a net increase in net and income from $6 million to $9.75 million in the forecasted year. So, nakita natin sa table yung pag-increase ng ating sales sa ating projected year 2011. So, another example of projected financial analysis for Matil and Corporation. So, in this table, 8-9 is the actual income statement in thousands. So, actual pa lang to, hindi pa siya projected financial statement. So, we have in a year 2004 up to 2006. So, this table is the continuation of the Mattel's actual income statements. So, we also have in our table 8-10, the Mattel's actual balance sheets in the year 2004 to 2006. So, hindi pa to yung projected financial statements natin. We also have this table, the continuation of the Mattel's actual balance sheets. So here's the example in performing Mattel's projected financial statements. In tables 8-11 and 8-12, Mattel's projected income statements and balance sheets, respectively for 2007, 2008, and 2009, are provided based on the firm pursuing the following strategies. Number 1, the company desires to build 20 Mattel stores annually at a cost of $1 million each. Number 2, the company plans to develop new toy products at an annual cost of $10 million. Number 3, the company plans to increase its advertising or promotion expenditures 30% over 3 years at a cost of $30 million. So $10 million per year. Number 4, the company plans to buy back $100 million of its own stock called treasury stock annually for the next 3 years. Okay, number 5 strategy. The company expects revenues to increase 10% annually with the above strategies. Mattel can handle this increase with existing production facilities. Number 6, dividend payout will be increased from 57% of net income to 60%. Lastly, to finance the $380 million total cost for the above strategies, Mattel plans to use long-term debt for $150 million, $50 million per year for 3 years, and $230 million by issuing stock of $77 million per year for 3 years. So these are the pursuing strategies and performing projected financial statements. So next we have Table 8-11 in performing Mattel's projected income statement in thousands. So Mattel's projected financial statements were prepared using the 6-step outline na na-discuss natin kanina and also the 7 strategy statements na na-discuss rin natin kanina. So in preparing this projected income statement, kung mapapansin natin is we have 3 years, projected 3 years, the 2007, 2008, and 2009. So meron siyang pag-iiba-iba na nangyayari in every year. So makikita natin ito sa ating author comments kung ano yung na-change na nangyayari. So we have up to 10% annually. In every year daw is may 10% na change in our total revenue. We also have remains of 54% in the cost of revenue, subtraction in the gross profit, and other comments or remarks of our author. So ito lang yung pag-prepared niya ng projected income statement ni Mattel Company. We also have this continuation of Mattel's income statements, projected income statement. So, importante rito yung comments na binibigay ng ating author, yung changes na nangyayari in every year, expected year. Next is the table -12 and preparing the projected balance sheets of Mattel Incorporation. So, tulad kanina, so magagamit rin natin yung steps ng pag-perform ng projected financial statements and also the 7 strategy statements sa pag-perform. So, yun nga, meron tayong author comments or remarks ng changes na nangyayari in every expected year. So, in our last slide, the continuation of our Mattel's projected balance sheets. So, katulad kanina, is meron siyang mga comments or remarks na importante sa pagkuha ng projected balance sheet in every expected year. So the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission SEC conducts fraud investigations if projected numbers are misleading or if they omit information that's important to investors. Projected statement must conform with generally accepted accounting principles or GAAP and must not be designed to hide poor expected results. The Sarbanes-Oxley Act requires CEOs and CFOs of corporation to personally sign their firm's financial statements, attesting to their accuracy. So that's all for my discussion assigned topic discussion in this chapter 8. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum everyone. This is Salih Rasuman and I am assigned to discuss about the financial budgets. Financial budget is a document that details how funds will be obtained and spent for a specified period of time. It has a range of more than 10 years. It is a method for specifying what must be done to complete strategy implementation successfully. Also, for obtaining the most productive and profitable use of an organization's resources. Financial budget can be viewed as the planned allocation of a firm's resources based on forecast of the future. And the most common type of financial budget is the cash budget. But financial budget have some limitations. First, budgetary programs can become so detailed that they are cumbersome and overly expensive. Over-budgeting or under-budgeting can cause problems. Second, financial budgets can become a substitute for objectives. A budget is a tool and not an end in itself. Third, budgets can hide inefficiencies if based solely on precedent rather than on periodic evaluation of circumstances and standards. And lastly, budgets are sometimes used as instruments of tyranny that result in frustration, resentment, absenteeism, and high turnover. To minimize the effect of this last concern, managers should increase the participation of subordinates in preparing budgets. The Financial Accounting Standards Board has mandated that every publicly held company in the United States must issue an annual cash flow statement in addition to the usual financial reports. The statement includes all receipts and disbursements of cash in operations, investments, and financing. It supplements the statement on changes in financial position formerly included in the annual reports of all publicly held companies. A cash budget for the year 2011 for the Toddler Toy Company is provided in Table 8-13. Note that Toddler is not expecting to have surplus cash until November 11, as shown in the table. Evaluating the worth of a business is central to strategy implementation because integrative, intensive, and diversification strategies are often implemented by acquiring other firms. All the various methods for determining a business worth can be grouped into three main approaches: what a firm owns, what a firm earns, or what a firm will bring in the market. Evaluating the worth of a business truly requires both qualitative and quantitative skills. The first approach is determining its net worth or stockholders' equity. Net worth represents the sum of common stock, additional paid-in capital, and retained earnings. After calculating net worth, add or subtract an appropriate amount for goodwill, overvalued or undervalued assets, and intangibles. Whereas intangibles include copyrights, patents, and trademarks. And also, goodwill arises only if a firm acquires another firm and pays more than the book value for that firm. The second approach is to measure the value of a firm grows out of the belief that the worth of any business should be based largely on the future benefits its owners may derive through net profits. A conservative rule of thumb is to establish a business worth as 5 times the firm's current annual profit. A 5-year average profit level could also be used. When using the approach, remember that firms normally suppress earnings in their financial statements to minimize taxes. The third approach is called the price-earnings ratio method. To use this method, divide the market price of the firm's common stock by the annual earnings per share and multiply this number or the result by the firm's average net income for the past 5 years. The fourth approach is called the outstanding shares method. To use this method, simply multiply the number of shares outstanding by the market price per share and add a premium. The premium is simply a per share dollar amount that a person or firm is willing to pay to control or acquire the other company. Table 8-14 shows that Mattel's goodwill of $815 million as a percent of its total assets of $4,675 is 17.4%, which is extremely high compared to Nordstrom's goodwill of $53 million as a percentage of its total assets of $5,661, which is 0.94% only. Pfizer's goodwill to total assets percentage is high at 19.3%. At year-end of 2008, Mattel, Nordstrom, and Pfizer had $815 million, $53 million, and $21,464 in goodwill, respectively, on their balance sheets. Most creditors and investors feel that goodwill indeed should be added to the stockholders' equity in calculating worth of a business, but some feel it should be subtracted, and still others feel it should not be included at all. Perhaps whether you are buying or selling the business may determine whether you negotiate to add or subtract goodwill in the analysis. Also, Table 8-14 provides that the cash value analysis for three companies, the Mattel, Nordstrom, and Pfizer, for the year end 2008. Notice that there is significant variation among the four methods used to determine the cash value. For example, the worth of the toy company Mattel ranged from $1,895 to $5,519. Obviously, if you were selling your company, you would seek the larger values, while if purchasing a company, you would seek the lower values. For deciding whether to go public, it means that selling off a percentage of your company to others in order to raise capital. Consequently, it dilutes the owner's control of the firm. Going public is not recommended for companies with less than $10 million in sales because the initial cost can be too high for the firm to generate sufficient cash flow to make going public worthwhile. For firms with more than $10 million in sales, going public can provide major advantages. It can allow the firm to raise capital to develop new products, build plants, expand, grow, and market products and services more effectively.
The next implementing strategies, we have the research and development issue. In here, research and development issue can play an integral part in strategy implementation. These individuals are generally charged with developing new products and improving old products in a way that will allow effective strategy implementation. A research and development employees and managers perform tasks that include transferring complex technology, adjusting processes to local raw materials, adapting processes to local markets, and altering products to particular tastes and specifications. Strategies such as product development, market penetration, and related diversification require the new products be successfully developed and the old products be significantly improved. But the level of management support for research and development is often constrained by resource availability. Technological improvements that affect consumer and industrial products and services shorten products' life cycle. Companies in virtually every industry are relying on the development of new products and services to fuel profitability and growth. So, surveys suggest that the most successful organizations use an research and development strategy that ties external opportunities to internal strengths and is linked with objectives. Well-formulated R&D policies match market opportunities with internal capabilities. So here are the research and development policies can enhance strategy implementation efforts to emphasize product or process improvement, to stress basic or applied research, be leaders or followers in R&D, develop robotics or manual type processes, spend a high, average, or low amount of money on R&D, and perform R&D within the firm or to contact R&D to outside firms and use university researchers or private sector researchers. There must be effective interactions between research development departments and other functional departments in implementing different types of generic business strategies. Conflicts between marketing, finance or accounting, research and development, and other information systems department can be minimized with clear policies and objectives. Here in the table 815 it gives some examples of research and development activities that could be required for successful implementation of various strategies. Many US utility, energy, and automotive companies are employing their research and development departments to determine how the firm can effectively reduce its gas emissions. So the strategy being implemented in pharmaceutical company is the product development, which tests the effects of a new drug on different subgroups. Next is the both manufacturer implemented related diversifications to test the performance of various skill design under various conditions. And then the plastic container manufacturer implemented a strategy of market penetration to develop a biodegradable container. And then we have the electronics company, implemented a market development strategy, which developed telecommunication systems in a foreign country. Firms wrestles with the decisions to acquire R&D expertise from external firms or to develop R&D expertise internally. So we have here the following guidelines. It can be used to help make the decision. First, if the rate of technical progress is low, the rate of market growth is moderate, and there is significant barriers to possible new entrants, then in-house R&D is the preferred solution. The reason is that R&D, if successful, will result in a temporary product or process monopoly that the company can exploit. Second, if technology is changing rapidly and the market is growing slowly, then a major effort in R&D may be very risky because it may lead to the development of an ultimately obsolete technology or one for which there is no market. Third, if technology is changing slowly but the market is growing quickly, there generally is not enough time for in-house development. The prescribed approach is to obtain R&D expertise on an exclusive or non-exclusive basis for an outside firm. And then if both technical progress and market growth are fast, R&D expertise should be obtained through acquisition of a well-established firm in the industry. At least three major R&D approaches for implementing strategies. The first strategy is to be the first firm to market new technological products. This is a glamorous and exciting strategy, but also a dangerous one. Firms such as 3M and Generic Electric have been successful with this approach, but many other pioneering firms have fallen with rival firms seizing the initiative. Second, R&D approach is to be an innovative imitator of successful products, thus minimizing the risk and the cost of startup. This approach entails allowing a pioneer firm to develop the first version of the new product and to demonstrate that a market exists. Then the laggard firms develop a similar product. This strategy requires excellent R&D personnel and an excellent marketing department. And the last one, which is the third one, strategy is to be a low-cost producer by mass-producing products similar to but less expensive than products recently introduced. As a new product is accepted by customers, price becomes increasingly important in the buying decision. Also, mass marketing replaces personal selling as the dominant selling strategy. This R&D strategy requires substantial investment in plant and equipment but fewer expenditure in R&D than the two approaches described previously. Research and development activities among U.S. firms need to be more closely aligned to business objectives. There needs to be expanded communication between R&D managers and strategists. Corporations are experimenting with various methods to achieve this improved communication climate, including different roles and reporting arrangements for managers and new methods to reduce the time it takes research ideas to become reality. The last implementing strategy is we have the Management Information System or MIS. Firms that gather, assimilate, and evaluate external and internal information most effectively are gaining competitive advantage over the other firms. Having an effective management information system may be the most important factor in differentiating from unsuccessful firms. The process of strategic management is facilitated immensely in firms that have an effective information system. Information collection, retrieval, and storage can be used to create competitive and advantage in ways such as cross-selling to cross-customers, monitoring suppliers, keeping managers and employees informed, coordinating activities among divisions, and managing funds. Like inventory and human resources, information is now recognized as a valuable organizational asset that can be controlled and managed. Firms that implement strategies using the best information will reap competitive advantages in the 21st century. A good information system can allow a firm to reduce costs. For example, online orders from salespersons to production facilities can shorten material ordering time and reduce inventory costs. Direct communications between suppliers, manufacturers, marketers, and customers can link together elements of the value chain as though they were one organization. Improved quality and service often result from an improved information system. And then firms must increasingly be concerned about computer hackers and take specific measures to secure and safeguard corporate communications, files, order, and business conducted over the internet. Thousands of companies today are plagued by computer hackers who include disgruntled employees, competitors, bored teens, sociopaths, thieves, spies, and hired agents. Computer vulnerability is a giant, expensive headache. And in many firms, information technology is doing away with the workplace and allowing employees to work at home or anywhere, anytime. The mobile concept of work allows employees to work additional 9 to 5 workdays across any of the 24 time zones around the globe. Affordable desktop video conferencing software allows employees to beam in whenever needed. And then, any managers or employees who travel a lot away from the office is a good candidate for working at a home rather than in an office provided by the firm. And then many people sees the office-less office trend as leading to a resurgence of family togetherness in U.S. society. Even the design of homes may change from having large open areas to having more small areas conductive to getting work done. For all for this chapter 8. Thank you for listening.